Still says 7 o'clock down there. All right.
Yeah, I know, you're good.
In order, 7 o'clock, and we'll open with prayer for guidance from John Schwalm.
Okay. Well, thank you, Jim. Can we bow our heads, please? Our dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this opportunity that we're able to be here tonight, and we pray for your wisdom, Lord, as we go about the business of Georgetown Township. We thank you for this holiday season, and we pray for blessings, Lord, as people travel and they get together with families. Lord, we take a look at the world situation right now, what's happening in the Middle East, and again, we pray for your grace and mercy over there, that people use cool heads. Thank you for the wonderful people that work here at Georgetown Township and the great job that they do, and particularly our first responders that regularly put their lives on the line for us, and we sincerely appreciate that. Be with us this evening. Thank you, Lord. In your Son's name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. I'll have our clerk call the roll in whatever way she deems best.
Trustee Schwalm?
Yes.
Treasurer DeWitt?
Here.
Clerk Kuiper's present. Supervisor Wieringa?
Present.
Trustee Grassman?
Present.
Trustee Beldink is absent with notice. Trustee Kelly?
Present. Okay. We have a quorum, yes?
Yes.
All right. Item 5, approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve tonight's agenda? So moved. Okay. There's several supports in there, too. Supported. Okay, yes.
Yes. I would like to pull one of the items off of the consent judgment, please. The approval of the final plat of Lowenwood, number 14. I would like to state my conflict of interest with that item, so I'd like to be pulled off so I can properly recuse myself from it.
What number?
Item number 9V, 910. Approval of the final plat of Lowenwood 14.
Okay. And what number would you have that be then?
It can fall right after the consent judgment, if
Okay.
you don't mind.
All right. So we could call it a 9 period, capital A period.
Sure.
How about that? All right. So that's a motion to amend the agenda. Is there a second for that motion? So moved. Support. All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, no one. So the agenda is so revised. Appreciate you bringing that to our attention. Item 6, Jensen Marching Band Achievement Recognition. This is why I was bummed tonight. I was trying to get one kid in wrestling, one in basketball, and go in 10 different directions. But really was hoping to get here ahead of time and visit with some of our marching band students who came tonight. And that's just appreciated that you take that time. But I want to recognize something that happens within our own midst, and sometimes it's easy to overlook or even to assume after so much success that the Jensen Marching Band has had, you just more or less kind of assume it's going to be the case year to year. It's not like the Lions. When they get good, you remember because it doesn't happen too often. You guys get good all the time, and we kind of take it for granted sometimes. And so we don't want a prophet to be without honor in his own hometown. And so David, I would like you to come forward along with your students that are with you tonight and approach the podium there. So David Zimborski, for those of you who don't know, how many years with Jensen Marching Band?
23 years.
You're 23. We see you every Memorial Day, and so appreciate that, whether it's cold or hot or raining, or we've had all weather, haven't we? But it always makes that event and many other events that the community enjoys, whether it's halftime at football games or marching band competitions or everything else you break down into too, pep bands and the like. So it is wonderful. And we wanted to issue a proclamation in your behalf, and I want to present it to you. I think I'm going to come out front here. And this is going to be presented to you, and then we'll have an opportunity for pictures and if anybody would like to say a few words. So I'm just going to read this proclamation. We don't make too many proclamations as a board, but from time to time it's called for. All right? This one says, whereas the Jensen Marching Band is one of the most decorated high school bands in all of the state of Michigan and beyond, and whereas the Jensen Marching Band won the state championship in Flight 2 at the state finals held in Detroit, Michigan in early November 2024. And whereas this championship represents the 7th consecutive Flight 2 state championship for the Jenison Marching Band and the 13th overall since just the turn of this century. And whereas such a run by any measure would be called a dynasty in any other field, and thus is appropriately called so by this board, and whereas the Jenison Marching Band has earned recognition as a Bands of America Grand National semifinalist 8 times in the past 13 years, and regional champion finalist many times. And whereas the Jenison Band program has been hailed as one of the, quote, best communities of music education, close quote, for over a decade, and designated as a Grammy Foundation signature school. And whereas this board recognizes the hard work, effort, and discipline invested in by the students of the band, their longtime leader, David Zamborski, and many faculty and parents who assist him together with support of the high school and the Jenison School Administration. And whereas the board recognizes that the Jenison Marching Band brings honor to this community and is deserving of public recognition, now therefore I, Jim Waring, as supervisor of Georgetown Township and the members of the Georgetown Township Board of Trustees, do hereby proclaim December 11, 2024 Jenison High School Marching Band Day. I urge everyone in the community to take the time on this day to acknowledge the band and all those involved in contributing to its success who are inspirational in their efforts and commitment to make their band, their school, their families, and this community a better place. So congratulations to all of you. Thank you. And applause would be appropriate. Thank you so much. I'm hopeful that you might, starting with you, David, might just say a few words. You don't all have to, but those who would like to, be a great chance to say whatever comes to mind. All right? Thank you. And then we'll get pictures.
Thank you very much for the acknowledgement of the hard work of our students for many, many years, as well as my colleagues and our marching band staff. We have been, repeatedly thrilled to represent this community at the state and national level, particularly last year and for the previous year and a half as we prepared for the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. That was, to us, kind of our most symbolic moment of representing our town of Jenison on the national stage and on national television. We are humbled and grateful to represent this community, and thank you again very much for the acknowledgement.
Yeah, thank you. Well deserved. Maybe you want to introduce who they are and what their role is. Yeah.
We have one of our drum majors, Jaden Bush, is with us, and my 2 colleagues, Seth Justice and Linus Garrett.
I'm Jaden. I want to start off by saying that thank you so much for high recognition. I never thought that it would actually be a day to celebrate the Jenison Marching Band. We and all my friends and drum majors and directors worked so hard throughout this season just to create such a memorable experience. And it means truly so much that we get such high recognition from our community because we worked so hard and gaining that good feeling of just camaraderie with our friends and actually see others notice that and appreciate that means a lot. So thank you very much.
Yeah. You're well said. Thank you, gentlemen. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you. I'm going to come out here and we'll recreate me handing the award to all of you. And if we could, I don't know if, oh yeah, Rob was going to do that. Where do you want to stand? Where would you like this? Like right in here? Okay. So if you'd all gather right there, and I'll just kind of be handing it across. Let's make sure everybody is seeing here. We're going to post this on Facebook, and we're going to post it to our website, and we're also going to post the fact of this day, Wednesday, being the Jenison Marching Band Day, not only in our social media, but I think maybe even scrolling on the sign out there. So we'll see. So, okay? So we'll just, yeah. Thank you. Now, I want to say 2 things. One, I saw a typo in it, which really bothers me. I typed it up. The second of which, unless you want to walk down to your shop teacher, I mounted it with the hanger on the bottom instead of the top. So I'm tempted to, if you're okay, I'm tempted to take it back and fix my typo, flip it around, and drop it off at your office. Would that be all right? Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you. Appreciate it. And you're welcome to go or stay. It's up to you. So, thank you. Yep. Thank you so much. Okay. Thank you, board, for recognizing what's happening in the community. Yeah. We'll see you.
That was wonderful.
John, it just feels like a moment when you want to say something.
You know, they are so helpful for us at Memorial Day, always professional, and they make the event, and it's a hardship on them after marching the entire time and then having to go there for the Memorial Day celebration, which usually is about another 45 minutes. Very professional, wonderful of the kids. They make the event. But yeah, we're truly blessed here. Our schools are phenomenal, and particularly with the marching bands. I was in marching band, but I was nothing like their caliber. They're incredible.
Yeah. 7 years in a row. That's amazing. That is amazing. Okay, we're going to move on now to item 7, communication letters and reports received for your information. And should you ever, again, board members, should you ever find something within that section that, you know, could be a typo or it could be a omission of some kind, be sure to bring that to the attention of either Rob or Justin, once the agendas come out, okay? Item 8, then, public comment for action items remaining on tonight's agenda. Is there anyone here tonight who would like to talk about any one or more of the items that remain on our agenda this evening?
Four items I want to talk about. One is the library fines and fees that you're going to think about waiving those. I think you might want to consider maybe waiving those fees only for the taxpayers in Georgetown Township, those residents, instead of making it free for everybody, since it's their money that built that library. The other thing is the code of conduct for the senior center. I think you guys are going to run yourself into a lawsuit at some point, reading through what the code of conduct is all about. There's several items on here. I mean, brandishing a weapon is already against Michigan law. I mean, you're going to leave it up to people to, talk to people about their concealed weapon or open carry, depending on how that all goes. Also, what does Michigan law say about videotaping? I'm sure you can't videotape in a locker room, but item M on that talks about videotaping in other areas in that building, and you need permission from the people being videotaped. Is it or is it not a public space? Because right down in item number P underneath that, it's public, but it's not. So you need to define what is the senior center. Is it not public or is it public? And I think there's mass confusion, and I think this is really focused at the Jewish lady that was here. Can't remember her name, Margaret, I can't remember. But, I mean, I think you need to pull back a little bit and reconsider what you're doing here. I understand what you're trying to do, but what you're actually going to put in words, you're going to subject yourself to a lawsuit. The other thing is the donation of property on 12th Street. That I'm not sure why we want to have that property. It's what? He paid $25,000 for it. It's now taxable at $11,000. We're going to lose the taxes on it. You can't build on it. I don't know what the future looks like for that property. It's a wetland. I don't know why we want to take that donation, because now we got maintenance, upkeep, maybe new equipment, certainly man hours to maintain the property. So I think you probably got to get a feel for what that's going to cost before you make that choice. And number 27, the forklift that you're going to purchase, I'm not sure why the forklift, 2 years ago we purchased, can't be used. I'm sure it's for the new BPW building, but, I mean, why can't we use that existing forklift and maybe explain why that is? The other thing is that I was surprised on a utilities meeting, special meeting, 10 o'clock in the morning. A lot of things were talked about, the rates and everything, but I got no access to the what was said there and what was presented there by the consultant. So do I have to FOIA that in order to get that information? Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Greetings, Sean Half, Winifred Street. As far as the GT connections with the increased increase in fees is definitely very reasonable. However, I would ask you members to maybe consider delaying this till maybe the next meeting unless there's some additional information that I'm not aware of. I would like to maybe consider passing these fees on so non-residents are maybe paying to make up for what the senior center might need. I believe that was mentioned at the committee meeting. I know Mr. Plum, and I think I brought it up, I actually thought that would be an idea maybe worth looking into. I mean, the money obviously is very reasonable. $5 with inflation nowadays, that's not it. But like I told my mom, she doesn't live in Georgetown. I said, well, you should probably pay more than somebody that lives in Georgetown. So maybe that's something to look into. I'm not concerned about the code of conduct. I'm not worried about a lawsuit on that end. Sure, there could be, but I think they might need it. As far as brandishing a firearm or some type of thing, I mean, would you rather maybe just use that to maybe just give somebody a warning and take them out rather than call the police and try to enforce a state law and arrest somebody? It'd be using less force there as well. And as far as the library goes, maybe there'll be some more information as far as that goes. I remember back when we had Blockbuster and some other things, I hated paying late fees. If it was 99 cents, I would get something in just so I didn't have to pay another 99 cents as well. It really seems counterintuitive to me that people are just going to ignore these fees and then be too embarrassed to come in and to take care of something like that. And maybe the other question I have is like, unless the book is taken, then they charge somebody to replace the book or whatever else might be there. But I mean, how long does that go on before it's considered lost? Is it 30 days, 60 days? When I use the library more regularly, or even if you're running a video back in the days, it was always frustrating to try to, when you really wanted something, it was gone, it was gone, it was gone, and just somebody just wanted to hang on to it. I mean, to me, I'm worried about somebody's just going to rent a book and they're just going to, keep it for 4 months and maybe get around to turning it back, and somebody else here might be really trying to get a hold of that book and they're not able to. So I would just ask you guys to consider those things before voting today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mike Bosch, Precinct 3, Georgetown Township. Like the good old days, 2015, 2016. A few items here. ARPA, I just want to call. This is the third time we're saying we're spending $2 million on roads. So it puts us almost $9 million. I think some board members are confused. We're not saying, you wouldn't be saying no to the money. It's just you can't keep saying you're going to spend it and then the next year say the same thing again. I tried it with my wife. It doesn't work. Once you spend it, it's spent. It's been allocated. Library, no late fees. I think Pete made a great point about waiving, or non-residents would have to pay the fee. With that too, I think it is going to be kind of confusing. I would suggest maybe after 1 year, then penalties are erased. Senior Center, we discussed it when I was in services back in 2017. I was hoping for a tiered system. So if you've lived here 20 years, you pay zero membership fee, and then it would be countered by the non-residents. My suggestion would be table it, look at it, maybe $10 for residents, and then a $50 fee for non-residents, pretty reasonable amounts. And our own residents have been hit enough with the water and sewer increases, as well as taxes. I think we should be doing everything we can to save them some money. Next item, forklift. We did just buy one a couple of years ago for the DPW building. I don't know why. I don't know if we saved the other one. That was an unnecessary purchase 2 years ago. I voted against it. And same thing here. Bring it to the new building. If you're not going to bring it to the new building, it needs to be considered part of the cost of this new field. What is going to be $2 million? Then it was 2.5. And we got, what, 4? No, we're 4.5. This thing is going to be $6 million all said and done. And you can try to play three-card money and say, well, landscaping, that's not part of it. Well, furniture, that's not part of it. Well, this is not part of it. You can't split it up. I tried that with my wife, same thing. I'm buying a Lamborghini for $20,000. Oh, and then 2 weeks later, what's this bill for $100,000? Well, that's for the wheels and tires. 2 weeks later, what's this bill for $50,000? Well, that's for the keys. You can't do that. Just be honest with the people. That's all I ask. And also, as far as the special meeting goes, I didn't even know that there was a special meeting. I obviously don't have that one set on my alerts for notifications. But requesting a special meeting, and then I go to look at the meeting minutes, and there are no meeting minutes. Nothing. Well, how am I supposed to know what happened? First of all, it shouldn't have been a special meeting. It would have been required. Maybe because Gary wasn't here, so you moved it up. I don't know. But you need to record all meetings. We have a superintendent who's making $185,000 plus benefits. We have an assistant to the superintendent making $120,000 plus benefits. And we had our previous assessor, I'm not sure what the position is now. We have 3 high-paid individuals. Nobody can take minutes? It's ridiculous.
Okay, anyone else? Seeing none, we'll close the initial public comment period here. And there are quite a few items on the agenda tonight, as you heard, up into the 20s, so keep moving along here. Number 9, consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda?
So moved.
Support.
Supported. Of course, it's been amended, as you know, 1 item removed there. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And it is approved. Okay, item 9A then. This would be the approval of the final plat of Blowing Woods number 14, of which, no, that's all right, yeah. So you are recused from that, Ms. Kuiper. Is there a motion to approve among the board then, this final plat of Blowing Woods?
So moved.
And support?
Support.
Okay, moved and supported. This would normally have been among the consent agenda items, and has been found to meet the criteria. And so, any discussion among the board? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And it is approved. Item 10, proposed change to policy 2006-01, Township Board Benefits Policy. Is there a motion to revise that policy, essentially by its elimination? So moved.
Support.
Okay, we've supported. This is a policy that goes back to 2006, precedes all of us here. There really hasn't been use of this policy much, if at all, in terms of over the years that I can recall. I know I've never turned in, or am I aware of anybody turning in any sort of computer usage or home computer usage request for reimbursement. So it's an unused policy, it's an outdated policy, and I just think it's a matter of cleaning it off. So,
Yep.
Any other thoughts? All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion is carried. Liquor license renewals. Is there a motion to approve the annual renewal of the following liquor licenses 1 through 7 is listed in the agenda?
I will make a motion to approve the liquor license 1 through 7 as in the agenda. Support.
Okay, moved and supported. And for benefit of new members, you may know already, but I think we've got 30-some licenses approved. We've got as many as 30 or more yet on the shelf, so to speak. So perhaps it was closer to 40 originally. These are continuations, as you can tell, the newest one being the only one really new in the last couple, 3 years being the Dunes Golf and Bar over here. I still hate that phrase, and bar. But it passed, and it is primarily about entertainment activity, much like with Rebounders. The rest of them are more traditional with restaurants, and they have, especially with the restaurants, they have certain requirements in terms of food sales and the like, which can be audited at any point in time that this board would elect to require it. Discussion, debate, thoughts?
We know when they're opening the golf and, no.
We've all probably driven past. It looks like it's got a ways yet.
Okay.
Yeah. I would think there'd be an impetus to get it done now, because when is that going to be popular? But in the winter.
In the winter, yeah.
So it'd be a bummer to miss, for them, to miss, this winter.
And people always tell me they want more restaurants and more things to do locally so that they don't have to drive far after working all day. They want to go somewhere close.
Yeah. We'd like to see some of those be used.
Yes.
Yeah. Got any thoughts? No? One? Okay. All right, then, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, this carried. Item 12, 2024 budget amendments. I would say about this time of year, each year there is a line item like this. It differs as to why each year. So this came out of finance. Is there a motion to approve the proposed budget amendments for this year's budget?
So moved. And support.
Okay. Discussion about that. Like I say, the categories of the line items can vary year to year for different reasons. Obviously, Rob and Justin will be happy to address any of these points themselves. I do know that when we talked about it in finance, we talked about the fact that while historically we have amendments, and sometimes not always up, but sometimes down on certain items, but we are conservative in our estimating both for income as well as expense. And I believe since the meeting, and I brought it up at the meeting, but since then I've asked the office to look at in this past year, how much are we below budget? I want to say it's in the neighborhood of, in just over $1 million, seven-figure. Yeah, because I asked at the meeting with
Corresponding amendment to cover that.
yeah.
So.
Okay, and that surplus, if you will, or that excess within the budget is this then deducted from, or you're saying even after these amendments?
After this amendment, we will not have to use the contribution from fund balance, but for an amendment purpose, you have to offset it with revenue, and that's the standard way to do it, that line item, that revenue item, but do not anticipate having to use this amendment actually. So this is just for appropriations.
Questions, comments, concerns? Just prior to you joining the board, some of you, we had our budget process through August, September, finalized in October. So this is looking at the current years. If there's no further discussion, then I'm going to ask for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, it's passed. Item 13, ARPA amendments. Is there a motion to approve the contract with the Ottawa County Road Commission for the 2024 road resurfacing project not to exceed $3.7 million, utilizing $2 million of ARPA grant dollars?
Yes, I will make a
Motion,
motion.
okay.
And support.
Motion and support, okay. Again, a Finance Committee item, and the floor is open. I'll say that in Finance, we had discussion among us about a different, number of things. One thing that I raised was it felt like we had identified the dollars for ARPA, which was our requirement to the federal government previously, and that it sounded to me like are we exceeding the earmarks? And so I asked Justin, and then you talked to Christy, I know, and to say go back and specifically line item them, which is what you see now on the screen. I guess my confusion when I raised it there, because again, those who weren't on the board, you wouldn't maybe have the same thoughts, but it felt to me like we had allocated as much as we had been given, and that this sounded like excess on top of that. As much as, I guess in my head I was thinking, where are we up to $7 million now? They went back and they compiled what we had allocated. I guess part of what had confused me was the ladder truck is coming in for less than had been thought. It's at 1.8, as you can see, or had been delineated as such. It's going to be closer to 1.5. And we're suggesting that the money that could come in under would be then allocated to road resurfacing, raising that to a total of $2 million. And that's $2 million we've talked about before for it. We've talked about allocating as much as a couple million to road resurfacing. My bottom line was, whether I saw this after the fact or before, was I know that the items to which we applied the money, and if there had been an excess application, it would have been to things which we need, meaning roads and the other items that are listed there. It would have come out of our general fund. So it's not a matter of excess spending as much as necessary spending in the application of the ARPA funds received, which if not identified by the end of this month, would otherwise be subject to being forfeited. So I was satisfied with the audit they did and presented. I think I would have been satisfied even so, because I know to what we allocated it.
Jim, I would say probably, it's good money management that it was designated where it was going to be spent, the ARPA money. If you don't spend it all by the end of December, you lose it.
Or at least designate it, yeah.
Designated.
Yep.
Thank you. Yep. And so they're on the ball. They're making sure that we save money, $90-some thousand on the fire truck. And so let's move the monies around so that it's allocated and we're able to get the full amount that was designated for Georgetown Township. And then we asked, are there communities where they'll have the money but they won't spend it? Yes, it happens because they haven't been keeping close track. They didn't designate by December 31st, and they can lose those monies. So this was just taking the opportunity, the monies that are available through ARPA, and making sure that they're all spent so we don't have a possibility of losing them.
Anyone else? Anything that Robert Justin you wish to add?
Well, just to reiterate, this is good news. Again, the $5 million plus has never changed. That's original allocation. And this is because the fire truck has come in lower than expected. Rather than not using those dollars, we're allocating them to roads so we can utilize the entire $5 million plus. So this is good news.
Great.
Okay. All right. There's a motion then to approve these ARPA amendments.
I'll make a motion to approve the ARPA amendments.
And support.
Okay, moved and supported. Ready to vote, board? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. Library overdue materials fine policy. And we have Rob Bristow here tonight, which we appreciate. Is there a board member who would like to make the motion to open then the discussion for the board on the subject?
I will make a motion to open up the discussion on this library overdue.
To approve, if you would. Yeah.
Support.
Support. All right. Time of discussion here, and I know Rob, you came just in case, but I think I would like you to speak to it. Two things come to mind. One is how different this paradigm is for most of us from what we were accustomed to, especially in this township not so many years ago, where we were, the phrase library Nazis was used. I didn't coin it, but I certainly heard it, and maybe others did too. And also, a couple of members of the public brought up tonight the whole question of when would you begin to penalize or treat something as lost or stolen or whatever. So on those subjects, could you help enlighten us why, from your perspective, you think this is appropriate?
Yeah. So as you know, we, over the past several years, have really focused on customer service and providing the best library service that we can to the community. We have a beautiful new building. So to me, this feels like the next step in this customer service is removing this kind of penalty that, like you said, we all grew up with. We all had that kind of threat hanging over our heads. You got to return it by this time, or you're charged probably at that point 5 cents or 10 cents. Now it's 15 cents per day overdue. So most libraries around us, at least 2/3, probably 3/4 of the libraries around us, have already made this step. So us making this step kind of fits in with all those libraries around us. To address the things that were brought up previously, I would fully agree with, prioritizing our residents. Unfortunately, the system that we use, that setting that makes things fines free or makes our library fines free is really attached to the items themselves and not to the patron barcodes.
On that point, the suggestion that, well, let's waive it for residents but not
Right.
non-residents would be...
Yeah, so I
think
would totally back that if we could do that, but our system doesn't allow for that. And we have 85 to 90% of our users are our residents. So hopefully that covers that too. As far as, obviously we still charge for things that are not returned or are return damaged. And right now it's like a 60-day billing cycle. So if people keep things for 60 days or more, they get a bill and it appears in their account. We would look at shortening that to 30 days or less as that incentive to bring things back. That was a great point that was brought up too. So that's definitely something we would implement, is shortening that billing period so that.
Could you do that without our input, or would it be like this fines policy that you'd have to come back to us on that question?
No, we can do that with most of the fines-free libraries do end up doing that.
Yeah.
Shortening that cycle.
So my question is, if you decided, that sounds like a good idea, maybe we shorten it more, would you have to come to this board for approval as you're doing with the fines policy, or is that something?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think that's something that I would be able to do with Lakeland Cooperative, is supporting that. And
help the board, Rob. When we were at the finance meeting, you gave some rationale why are 2/3 or 3/4 of the libraries around us. This doesn't make them right, but we feel like the rationale is good. So could you give us some of that?
I think one of the main things is that really what it ends up doing is keeping people from using the library. So if they take out a few things, they don't return it on time, there's like an ingrained shame in us that we didn't return it on time, so we don't want to show our faces in the library again. Or it could be the fines aspect of it. And so most libraries, after you reach that $10 threshold, your card kind of gets cut off. So then you're not able to use it. So it ends up kind of penalizing whole families. And so we've seen in the past where adults might use their kids' cards. After they've racked up their fines on their cards, they turn to their kids' cards, start using that, rack up fines there. So it's really the kids that end up paying the cost there. In addition to that, most of what we're talking about is like 15, 30 cents, $1, $2, $3, something like that. Logistically, we spend more time collecting the fees and explaining to people what the fees are for and trying to rationalize the fees to people than we're really collecting. So the amount that we're collecting in a given year, I think right now we're at about 17,000. And I would say probably about 3/4 of that would actually be replacement or damage fees or things that we would keep fees on. So we would keep fees on express books, which are the books that only go out for a week. Those are new titles. The library things, items that we have, book discussion kits and our mobile hotspots. So we would keep the fees on those. So I'd say about 3/4 of what we actually collect probably is already in there. So so we wouldn't be losing a whole lot.
So Rob, you don't feel people are going to exploit this? And
I don't think so. Fines free has been a thing for probably going on a decade now, where it's getting more and more popular with libraries. So there's been a lot of studies done, and most of them have said that it actually has gone to the opposite. So instead of people abusing the system, they're actually bringing stuff back earlier, more on time. So
Are you going to advertise that it's fines-free, or are you just going to keep it under the radar, or how does that
I
work?
was not planning to advertise.
Okay.
If it's approved, I figure people can find out on their own.
Okay.
So,
And what does that do for outstanding fines at this point?
You worried, Kevin?
I was going to talk to you about that. So that would actually be up to you guys if you wanted to approach that part of it of waiving outstanding fines that are already existing or not. That would be completely up to you.
Is this starting in 2025?
Yeah, I think that would be an ideal time to.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the fines don't give you leverage to work with these people. It has an opposite effect.
Yeah, I feel like that the negative experience that people have outweighs the positive of the little bit of funding that we're getting from it.
What if they just keep a book and they're not going to bring it back?
Yep, then they get charged the cost of the whole book. So.
Okay, you will go after that.
Definitely.
Yes.
Yep. So that's where right now it's the 60 days before we charge the whole cost. But that's where we would shorten it to like 30 days or so.
Okay, and I may have misunderstood. What about the damage that's done? Is that still going to be collected?
Definitely.
So if it's damaged or not returned, you're still going to go after them.
Exactly.
What you're asking us is if they are late for a month, or is that what we're saying? If they're late for a month, you don't want to have any penalty.
And I would say 95%, don't quote me on that, but 95% of things that are overdue are a week or less, I would say.
Okay, but you're still going to get our books back, and you're going to take care of the damage. All right.
I'll go knocking on their doors.
Okay.
Probably.
Confused.
What I find helpful as a frequent fine payer at the library is the reminder. Well, I only can go, right, if we don't have any activities on a Saturday morning. And then we take, we get a stack of books and pour over them for 3 weeks at a time. And they enjoy them for 3 weeks at a time. And it's fun. And then, we finally have another free Saturday. Let's go back and, give back our 20 books and get 20 more. What I find really helpful, though, is the courtesy notices that get sent out. Would those no longer be a thing then if there's not any overdue fines or fees, or would I still get a courtesy notice after a couple of
Yeah, and that's a great point, too. So 2 things with that. You would still get your courtesy notice. So we send out notices 3 days before items are due via email or text, or both if you prefer. And then on top of that, we also have automatic renewals for items, which started a few years ago. So between those 2 things, that's knocked off a ton of overdue. I think if you went back and looked at the amount that we collected probably 5 to 10 years ago versus what we collect now, it's greatly reduced in a lot of ways because of that. So this you could also see as kind of a natural progression, going overdue, fines free, kind of the next step in that courtesy notice, automatic renewals, just upping the customer service, I would say.
I don't know if it's helpful for anybody, but the way I kind of thought about this is, the library is already a controversial building in our community, but it's here and it's beautiful, and I think that now that it's here and it's this beautiful building for all of us to use and enjoy, it does feel like there is some sense of obligation to aid people in being able to utilize it, because with $10 worth of fines, and from something as simple as leading a busy life, I now no longer can use this very expensive building that I helped pay for. So for me, it feels as if the erasure of fines continues to allow people to utilize this extremely important public amenity for our residents. And then the folks who damage books or steal them or keep them, they're still penalized in the same fashion. And so to me, it's that group of people who just can't get it back exactly on the due date. And it allows more people then to continue to use this public amenity that we now have available to everybody. So that's kind of how I broke down what we're doing in my head. I'm not sure if that thought process is helpful to anybody else, but I thought it was a good explanation. And it's helpful to know that a lot of other people are doing it. If you go do any sort of Google research, it really is the way of not even the future, it's here. It's sort of how a lot of people are operating.
Yeah, I think that's very perfectly put. Yeah, for me, the bottom line, I would much rather see people continue to use the library than to collect $11 from them.
I think it'd be more palatable for a lot of people if we kept the fine policy, but it was for a longer period of time. And I'm kind of surprised we're not going to add it in increments. Not saying I'm necessarily totally against this, but for my generation, it would make a little more sense.
Well, I understand that because I grew up with the bees too. I understand.
Anyone else? Good discussion, points, and good input. Thanks, John. Well, all right. Anything more among the board now, having heard what we have and asked the questions that you have? I'm with you, Kelly. It makes a lot of sense. At first thought, I was more thinking like you were, John. Why would we do that? But he's explained it pretty well and given good rationale. Yeah.
What I would like to add, though, maybe is I'd be very curious if we do start this on January 1, 2025. I think it would be really great to already be planning on a January 1, 2026 kind of a year in review and just see maybe what changes occurred, or assuming that it passes, but just what changes occurred and any trends, or I'd be really curious to hear if we could kind of pay attention to a year's worth of data. I think it would be good for us to all hear that.
Kelly, I really like that.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Could we suggest that we get an update in a year where we stand, and maybe we would even then find we have to make some changes.
Mm-hmm. From both the customer service perspective, feedback, and then also, financial update as well. What the impact or not no impact essentially was.
Would you know that by January, right at the end of the year? Would you be?
Or in February or March, but just sort of a year's worth of data or something.
Mhm.
Great idea. You're always welcome, of course, to come even sooner and say, you know what, I wanted to give you feedback, but let's plan on, at the very least, first meeting January 2026. Okay. All right. With that, then, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And it is passed. Okay, GT Connections. And by the way, Rob, you can feel free to go if you need to. I never want people to worry about slipping out. So, item 15, GT Connections Code of Conduct. Is there a motion to approve the adoption of a Code of Conduct resolution that came out of services?
I'll make a motion to approve the Code of Conduct.
Support.
Okay, moved and supported. Either one of my fellow service members wish to address it? I know we have Pam here tonight, Pam, there were also a couple of comments made by the public that perhaps might be a good thing to address and get your perspective on. So, would you like that first? Yeah.
Sure. I can add. I think it's pretty boilerplate language, and I'm frankly surprised we have not had any sort of code of conduct in place up until now. Without a code of conduct, Pam's entire role is completely subjective as it relates to behavior at the senior center. And that's really an unfair burden, I think, to put on any one person or even a team of people. Mm-hmm. There really does need to be a document to say these are the rules or these are the expectations, so that when somebody does break one, we actually have a legitimate policy to point to instead of our personal feelings on the matter. So I do think it's wise. But the language I thought was relatively boilerplate. I didn't find anything that stood out to me as being contentious.
Mm-hmm.
So you would say that rather than it exposing us, it should decrease the exposure we already face in the absence of
I think it
standards.
decreases exposure from liability as a whole, and I also think it should provide a little bit more sense of confidence to do their job to staff of the senior center.
Okay. Any thoughts, Amy? Just from a services perspective for the
Right,
board?
well, because we had talked about it, but there were some points made, and maybe Pam wants to address a couple of the things of the public comment.
That'd be good. And then talk to me if you've busted anybody on gossip yet. I'd like to know that.
I'm always busting people for gossip.
All right.
What do you want me? What exactly would you like? Which ones to address?
I guess just generally on the whole, is this something that you would appreciate and that you would see as useful there? And then specifically, if there's anything you've heard either from your seniors or here tonight, whether the public or from the board from our prior meetings that you would want to address.
I would say this is something that I looked at in depth and studied as far as what other senior centers have. I wanted it to be very easy. The bullet points make it easy to look at because they'll have to sign that as a new membership form in 2025. So I didn't want it cumbersome because otherwise they're not going to read it. These were all taken from different facilities of senior centers in Michigan and approved by our lawyer, right? So they were kind of the ones to guide us to what should be included or not included in this list.
Mm-hmm.
Pam, are you going to post them also?
Post it. We could. Each person that comes into the center as far as a member is going to have to sign it. So they will get a copy of that and have to sign it, and we'll have that on record. Most people that come into the senior center are members. So, yeah.
I'd like to suggest that you do post it.
Post it.
Something.
Yeah, we could do that.
I think from a liability standpoint, that'll help you.
Yeah. Okay.
I think that's a good idea, because you could even just put it on a board or in the entryway.
Yeah, we have like a lot of our licensure and that kind of thing in a spot. We can put that right there.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Yeah.
Isn't there a lot of picture taking, video stuff going on in the building? Just taking pictures of Amy's crafts?
Yeah.
With that one line there,
They love to be in those pictures too, by the way.
I think what's come up in the past is if we have an exercise class going on and they are licensed to teach that class and then someone wants to videotape that, they have the credentials to teach that class. So that's why that one's on there in particular. We do. We take lots of pictures, post them on Facebook, videos. It's not in regards to that. It's more in regards to taping some of our classes that instructors are teaching that have the credentials and get paid for.
But we're just saying no photography, no videos, almost means like it's...
Well, without permission.
Without permission.
I kind of piggybacking off of that, do we have any, with their membership, do they sign a consent form for photography? Okay, so I guess that's why I thought so, which is why I think
like
that line,
school.
they're signing this consent form for photography. It really covers just the general photo taking.
Mm-hmm.
That gives carte blanche permission for the Facebook photos.
So usually they, like if they do a craft class, they all stand in a certain spot, and they know they're getting their picture taken. And they're all fine with it, and we say, hey, we'll have Library Rob maybe post it on the Facebook page, or, or Pam will run it on her screen.
Yeah, with the TV. Yeah. They love to watch themselves, see themselves.
Like to see it, yeah. So they all know.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not new.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else for Pam? Anyone?
She does a wonderful job there.
Thank
and
you.
they love her.
Thank you, Pam.
Thank you.
Yep, the whole staff.
All right. I'll be up here a couple more times.
Yes. Discussion among the board, now that we've had Jim's further input. Okay, it's been vetted with legal counsel, and I like your point about we're being potentially arbitrary without it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. This is a resolution, if it were to be adopted, so it'd be a voice vote. I'll ask our clerk to call the roll.
Okay, Mr. Schwam?
Yes.
Treasurer DeWitt?
Yes.
Clerk is a yes. Supervisor Warrington?
Yes.
Trustee Grassman?
Yes.
Trustee Kelly?
Yes.
Unanimous?
Okay. It's passed. Item 16, GT Connections membership rates. Is there a motion to approve the rate increase as set forth in the attachment to your agenda, $5 resident and non-resident?
Make a motion to approve the proposed rate increase to the GT Connection Senior Center membership starting in 2025 as recommended by the Services Committee.
Support. Okay, moved and supported. You all see the staggered rates that currently exist between resident and non-resident. There is distinction made. Thoughts about the proposed increase? Statements, Pam, that you would wish to make in any way regarding this? It's been a while since we, I think, affected the rate.
It's been a while,
About 7 years.
2017, I believe. Yeah. So in going forward with rate increase as far as keeping up with the times kind of thing, don't want to increase it largely again if we don't do a rate increase now. We're in the right range as far as other senior centers, and there is a difference between resident, non-resident fees, which I think is good, but I do need non-residents to make certain activities go for residents. So we still need non-residents, and a lot of non-residents have been with us for sometimes some over 20, 25 years. So to make them go a huge rate increase on a fixed income, I know, and I just feel like we're getting the rates, or we're getting more money in the regular daily activities that we do. It's almost just a monetary, okay, you're a member, you belong to this club kind of idea, and it's not to get a lot of money. And when most people say, what, is that $20 a month? No, that's $20 a year. They're like, wow, that's great, fantastic. But then they pay for things as they go.
Sure.
So.
Yeah.
Do you think the non-resident membership should be higher than it is?
I don't, just because it's probably about a 20% non-resident that we have right now that are going to different activities that belong to the center. But like I said, we need them as well, because let's say we have a trip that I need, 50 people to go on to make it an activity that can actually happen, and I only have 35, but 15 more non-residents go on that trip, so now we can go. So it benefits both the resident and the non-resident.
Okay.
I was able to meet with Pam to kind of talk about some of this further and go through the senior center, and I think that is probably one of the most important points to be made here. The idea of tipping points. If anybody is as obsessed with Malcolm Gladwell as I am, but this idea of a tipping point in the fact that we have a threshold that has to be met for activities or for trips. And this wasn't really clear to me until I spoke to you further. But there has to be a certain number of people to, attend a class, to make a class happen, to have a person come in and teach the class, to send the bus on that trip. And our non-residents, they don't make up a large portion of our membership, but they going to all the activities, and there has to be enough people on that bus to make the trip happen, in that class to make that class happen. And so having a nominal membership fee, even for a non-resident, gets their foot in the door, and it allows more activities then to happen at the senior center. That's sort of the way that I understand it. One thing that we had talked about was this idea of approaching this 1,000 member mark. And I think that we could relook at it if we can get our resident membership up Because if we had a larger resident membership, then we wouldn't need to rely on outside members to keep that tipping point, keep things going over. But until then, the non-residents really make possible a lot of the activities from just a participation rate, essentially. And so it is important to get their foot in the door, if you will. Not to mention kind of talking through and researching different senior centers in the area. There's not a lot like our senior center. And I think it's really a gem, and I love being able to share that with people. So to have this nominal fee to get people's foot in the door, but it doesn't bar them from paying any other fees, right? The membership rate is to get the foot in the door, and then, there's still a fee for activities, and that's where the bulk of the fee is generated, at the activity level, not at the membership level. But I think I want to make note of the comments we received about members or residents versus non-residents, because I think it is important to continue that framework of, a taxpayer-funded entity. We really want to make sure it's accessible for, our taxpayers first and foremost. And I think that we are doing that. It's readily accessible for those taxpayers, but we have kind of a little excess space that makes a lot more possible there. And I think it's great that we're able to open it up for others as well. It's sort of my 2 cents on it.
When you say you have non-residents, you got somebody that's 20, 25 years. Are you looking just like outside of Georgetown, like Hudsonville and Granville and stuff like that, or are we getting people from a lot further than that are?
Oh, you're asking where they're coming from?
Yeah, I mean,
yes.
You said it's a small percentage, but you got to get 25 years ago.
Yeah.
Sometimes they must live just in Granville or.
Yes, we get. I would say majority are Hudsonville, Jamestown, Coopersville, places they don't have a senior center. Granville, some. We have one program, our watercolor classes, where we do get people from Grand Rapids even, just because it's a unique class. We used to get more from Holland. In that particular program, actually, I already make sure that residents have first dibs at getting the class. They register ahead of time, and then if there's room left, non-residents are then able to go into that class because it is so popular.
Yeah, that's a great policy to do, like residents.
And if it becomes an issue down the road with other things like that, exercise classes, for instance, we're going to have to go to that as well. I don't see where we would have to eliminate, or I guess you would never eliminate, but even to make that non-resident rate that much higher, we can get around that by having pre-registration dates for residents and then non-residents later on. And we're going to a computerized, not computerized, but an online system here soon, hopefully in 2025, and we'll be able to do that through that system as well. So, yeah, good question.
You mean someday you'll be old enough to go and experience it yourself over there?
Coming tomorrow.
Ham, to go 7 years from 2017 until now, I'm thankful you didn't have to raise it substantially.
Mm-hmm.
But a thought for you is 2 years from now, whatever, I try to keep it in $5 increments. And if we don't know what's going to happen to this economy, and if all of a sudden we have some inflation, it's palatable for $5. But if all of a sudden you got to do 20 because we've had some real inflation,
right?
You then could see your membership drop. So I trust your judgment.
Mm-hmm.
Please keep that in mind, because sometimes we'll wait too long, and then all of a sudden there'll be a large increase, and that could hurt you.
Yep. Good thought.
This amounts to 4% roughly a year for the past 7 years all at once.
Okay.
Most of those years that would have kept pace with CPI, the last couple of years not, but my goodness, $10 over 7 years, that's not bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. John, good suggestion. No, don't wait too many years. Yep. I think kind of did that with water sewer a little bit. We held it, and we should have been probably moving it incrementally more frequently.
We thought in 2017 it was going to go up with inflation every year, and that did not happen. That would have helped a great deal.
Thank you again.
Thanks, Pam.
Okay, any further discussion on this? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that motion is carried. Item 17, annually we have an agreement for the Saturday slip and slide over at Rosewood. And so the charity has changed, but the agreement has remained intact. Thank you again, both of you. Has remained intact, and it's for our protection. It's for clarity of the relationship, the legal relationship. We appreciate what they do, and we appreciate the activity and all, but the agreement has been drafted and refined and approved a number of times in the past. So is there a motion to approve again this year?
I will make a motion to extend the contract, approve the contract.
Yeah, it's a year-to-year basis, yep. So motion to execute for another year.
Support.
Moved and supported. Questions, comments? Kevin, do you go or do you?
No, I've never been. Been to the Charlie's Dump one though, but never there. No.
Okay, well, yeah, you know what? I go by the unofficial name too.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's where this is. So, I actually did this. It's been a handful of years. Time to go back out there. You get grass in your teeth for about 3 weeks.
I try to stay away on that day.
All right.
How many years have what year are we up to on this? How many years have we done this?
I would guess 12.
When we say we, it's kind of loosely, it's like they, you know, which is nice.
Yeah.
An initiated activity, which is great. I love it when residents.
It's been different.
They handle
groups
it.
too, isn't it?
What a headache.
Yeah.
So they take it on. It's an incredible event. People love it.
They clean it all up. They have volunteers.
Yeah. And it's not something that the municipality has to pay for as far as directly with their employees. They're taking care of it.
Did I ask for a motion on this yet? I don't recall now.
No.
Okay. Is there someone who'd like to move to approve this agreement?
We did.
We did.
Yes, we did.
Pen and paper.
Okay. All right. Ready to vote?
Yes.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It is passed. Item 18, request for extension for final preliminary plat approval, Shepherd's Farm. Developer saying they need another 6 months to complete. So that they're out of compliance. So, for a motion to approve of this extension to this June 11, 2025.
So we'll make a motion to extend to June 11th, 2025.
Support.
Moving supported. This is one where I'm sure if Gary were here, he'd have a couple things to say about the reality of building and development, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty familiar with this one too. They just ran into some Eagle challenges and finally got that Eagle approval. So, the final preliminary plat process comes after you get your preliminary approval by all of the agencies. And so just when that takes too long, you run beyond your 1 year, and thankfully we offer this extension because otherwise they'd be going back to the beginning, which isn't the end of the world, but this is nice that they're able to get an extension. But then if they don't make it by this June 11, 2025, they will start the platting process from the beginning. So.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, it passes. Item number 19. This would be an ordinance to change from office service commercial to low-density residential parcels of land as described in our agenda this evening. And were Gary here, he would recuse himself. So he just happens not to be here tonight. This directly affects him, and your vote should not in any way be swayed one way or another as that relates to him. Planning Commission is recommending this. You all have looked at it. Any comments, questions, concerns among the board? I get more concerned when I see changes that bring more density. Concerns about that, but when I see it's going to be office service or it's going to be residential or low density there, I don't know if there's a greater use or maybe it might be a lesser use, right, in terms
Yeah.
of traffic flow and the like.
And Kevin does a great job, with his staff memos. There are criteria, right, in order to be recommended for approval for a rezone. Is it capable, consistent, and compatible? And he goes through it all. And so if you read through those minutes, you'll see that it meets all of our criteria for a rezone.
Right, I do appreciate the staff reports.
Mm-hmm.
Well written, well done. Anyone? Anything? Okay, this is a resolution. So we'll ask for a roll call vote.
Okay, Trustee Kelly?
Yes.
Trustee Grasson?
Yes.
Supervisor Wieringa?
Yes.
Clerk Kuiper is yes. Treasurer DeWitt?
Yes.
Trustee Schwam?
Yes.
All votes in favor, it passes.
Okay. Item 20, this also would be a change from low-density residential to highway service. And you know what? I think I didn't misspeak. The other ones, the previous ones involved Gary. Item 20 here, I'm from...
Did we have a motion for that?
Did I? You know what? Sorry. Once I didn't recall I called for one, and I didn't recall that I didn't. So let's back up a step. I apologize. I know how you voted, but let's go back and have someone make a motion for that resolution as recommended by the Planning Commission concerning...
I'll make the motion to approve that resolution as recommended by the Planning Commission.
Support. Support. All right, good. And we'll adopt the votes that were just made, so, okay. All right. Item number 20, a motion for this change from low-density residential to highway service for these couple of parcels identified.
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution as recommended by the Planning Commission.
Support?
Moved and supported. At least look at it aerial, not having gone out there and familiar with what Prince Motors is doing out there. You've read the staff report. Any comments, questions, or concerns among the board? Okay, again, a good staff report. There's no objections or comments, questions, and let's move to a vote here. This is also a voice vote, but just before I go to that, let me make sure we've moved and approved. Yes?
Yes.
Yes? Got it written? Thank you. Go ahead and call roll.
Treasurer DeWitt?
Yes.
Trustee Grassman?
Yes.
Clerk Kuiper is yes. Trustee Schwam?
Yes.
Trustee Kelly?
Yes.
Supervisor Wieringa?
Yes.
All in
Okay, mix it up. That's good. Okay, item 21, township and library cleaning contracts, which come up, every 3 years. Is there a motion to approve the bid from Myers Cleaning Service for our township and library cleaning contracts for the years 2025, 26, and 27?
Make a motion to approve the bid from Myers Cleaning Service for year 25, 26, and 27 as recommended by the Finance Committee.
Support. It's been moved and supported. This is our current cleaning crew for those who are unfamiliar. We've had other firms in the past. We've had very good success with them. If you've ever interacted with any of them when you're here in the evenings or even other times, sometimes I'll be here during the day. I find their workers to be, their employees to be consistent. Find them to be respectful, frankly humble, focused. So
Have we ever used
I've been pleased.
GH before? Has the township ever used GH?
You mean the competing bid?
Mm-hmm.
We have used them in a park setting. Have I got that right, Justin? Yeah. Yep.
Because they're $12,024 more Myers than GH overall, but some things are more and some things are cheaper.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just questioning. You do?
Yes. That's a kind way to put it, Yeah. We've had real life experience, but that's a good question to ask, Ian, again. Yeah.
Well, I just, wondered if there was a reason.
Right. Yeah, we've been pleased. That's a hard business, frankly. The turnover is incredible. And you'd be surprised. I mean, I've seen some of the same people here for years, which is a testament to how they're running things. But yeah, I mean, the biz results, as you say, can vary one thing to the next.
Mm-hmm.
But they give a very good bid. themselves. Anybody else? That's one I wanted to speak up for. I think they're a fine outfit. Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that is carried. We're now going to move on to item 23. In that same vein, we need park bathroom cleaning contracts. Is there a motion to approve the bid from ONS Cleaning Services, 25 through 27? Oh,
Senior Center?
Get to the center.
oh, there's three in a row. Sorry. Yeah, thank you. Item 22, GT Connection Senior Center cleaning contracts. Is there a motion to approve the bid, again, from Myers Cleaning Service for the next 3 years for that facility as well?
I'll make a motion to approve Myers Cleaning.
Okay, moved and supported. Discussion among the board. Again, their bid was much lower.
Yes.
And I think their quality is every bit the others.
51 versus 75, so yeah.
Anybody? No? All right. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is carried. Now we'll go on to the item 23, the park bathrooms cleaning contracts. In this case, there a motion to approve the bid from ONS Cleaning Services.
Make a motion to approve the bid from ONS Cleaning Services for 25, 26, and 27.
Support.
Okay, moved and supported. Justin, you shared a little bit with us about why it can even be tough to get people to bid on this. Talk to the board a little bit about that, if you would.
You said they clean the park every single day. Okay, so we shouldn't go to it every other day?
No.
No, okay. All right. I understand. I don't need to go any further.
Yeah. Please with ONS.
Yeah.
Comments, questions, concerns?
What time of day do they usually go in? I mean, it's kind of a dumb question, but they do it in the mornings before, and then, yeah.
Yeah, tell them about the hours and the time of year too. I think it's just good for board members to know. There's certain hours and there's certain months. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Hearing no further comments, all in favor of this motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is carried. Item number 24, Woodcrest Park proposal. This came out of services. Is there a motion to approve a contract with Prine and Newhoff for engineering related services at that park not to exceed $35,000?
I will make a motion to approve the contract with Brian and Newhoff for Woodcrest.
Support. Moved and supported. Kelly, it'd be nice to have you speak to this one. I know, I mean, I think a lot of us are frequent park users, but you really like
I love the park.
parks.
I love Woodcrest
Yeah.
in particular. I love it because there's not much going on there. But I am excited to think through the opportunities for this park. If you're not familiar, there is a pond. There's actually a large section of property that you might not even really know is a part of the park, kind of as you're coming down the drive. It likely is all wetland. Yep. And then just in general, the soil conditions out here are incredibly challenging based on just prior information. And so what came to us at Services was a larger proposal to include kind of a lot of due diligence work, soil borings and some survey work, wetland delineation, then even starting to get into master planning for the site. And Services Committee really talked through that and said, because of some of these physical site characteristic challenges, it really makes sense to do this one step at a time. And we have heard from some members in the audience here and just in general, some of the public. I think there is a desire to potentially have some public input in something like planning a park, and I think that Woodcrest could be that opportunity to do sort of a public charrette potentially. And so we discussed, and I say I, but we kind of discussed as a committee, and I kind of led the discussion, so I don't want to speak for other people, but the discussion centered around getting an understanding of those physical site characteristics is critical before we can even dream of what we can do with this park. So there was 2 documents linked in your agenda, and I just want to clarify because even I was confused. The 2 documents were a couple of different Bryan and Newhoff letters with some dollar figures that include numbered items. Those were the original items brought to the Services Committee, and as a committee, like I said, we decided to pare that way back and step out the process. So I just want to be very clear that what we're asking for would be to move forward with specifically those due diligence items. We had talked about soil borings, but really if we do soil borings, survey, or topo, or wetland delineation, we need to get those pieces of information done before we can move into any of the site planning items.
Correct.
So I just want to be clear that this letter, as it's presented, isn't entirely accurate as to what our first step will be. Our first step is really just to collect the information for the site. Because if the soil condition isn't good enough, we're going to have to rethink what we can or cannot do there. I mean, ultimately, it still works as a gathering spot, but then it may limit your options in terms of playground structures going into the ground, even soccer fields, really. It all really depends on what we find. So that's just a little bit of background of what we're asking for. It's just step 1 to think about gathering the due diligence to think about the future of Woodcrest Park.
Yep.
Good. Good explanation.
Mm-hmm. And I think we have to do that before we can't do anything until we get some answers in terms of the soil and everything else, what we can and cannot do. I think that's money we have to spend to improve the park.
John, you were on Services not that long ago. We're kind of picking up the ball when you left some things.
Yeah, this is exciting, and particularly with the soccer fields, potential of that down there.
Yep.
Please keep in mind possibility of grants that we could come up with a program that we could apply to utilize down there. And Jim had mentioned that there was some property available down there a number of years ago, and I think it should be on our radar. We did purchase some land down there, but if we could tie in with 12th Avenue and even connect with Pioneer Park, I think that'd be a huge plus if we could do that. But excited that you're moving in this direction, and we need to have some hard numbers, some hard facts, particularly with that being so low down there.
Good. Anyone else? Hearing none. Call for the vote here. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That motion is carried. Item number 25, donation of the property at 6763 12th Avenue, which I expect you could pull up on the screen there as well. This came out of utilities, so looking toward Kevin and Jean to give some initial comments about that. I've not called for the motion, so I'm going to do that first of all and place it on the floor. Is there a motion to accept this donation?
I'll make a motion to accept the donation.
And support.
Just so you know, when I call for that motion, if the tide were to turn another way, the motion can always be withdrawn and defeated and a new motion made. So don't feel like just because you made the motion, you're throwing your gusto behind it. So, okay, it's on the floor. So,
there was some talk about that. Even if we got it for donation, that we could, the school across Bursley, ties in across the street, that they could maybe use it even possibly with some of their environmental classes that they do outside. That's a possibility. Then I think Justin also came up with it would help us out with sidewalks down the way, that we'd have it and we could continue that sidewalk to the...
An easement for a sidewalk.
An easement, yeah.
Yes.
If we accepted it as a donation,
Right.
then we would have the rights to the sidewalk. And one of the things Gary pushed for is when they set this up, make sure you've got the easement for the sidewalk there, so that it doesn't have to be done a second time. And then we may decide then to donate it to the school, which is right across the street, and they could use that as a potential site for them for a laboratory for the students. Or
for what, you say?
Well,
for what?
They were talking about having direct contact with a creek.
Putting
They
like
would have an
kayaks
interest.
and canoes in there, right, for classes.
Right.
And so we would have to maybe put in a parking lot though, but we'd have to get the easement for the sidewalk.
Well, we would probably just accept the land and then see if the school has expressed an interest. But we would get the rights to a sidewalk across there without having to pay for it.
Oh, okay.
So the owner approached us, or we approached them?
I believe he purchased that a few years ago and wanted to put a duplex in there and got the preliminary things running. And I think there might even have been a fee that he paid. And then he found out it was in the floodplain and was unbillable. And I thought that ran through the Utilities Committee, and we were able to work something out with him as far as the fee that he was committed to. I can't remember the details.
Yeah, in 2022, he was on the agenda after he purchased the property in 2021. He paid the water and sewer special assessments, the frontage fees that were associated with the property, almost concurrently to finding out that the property was completely inundated with 100-year floodplain. And it sounded like this was a letter Joel had prepared for the Utilities Committee, I believe. They had already started the work installing the lateral there, called kind of in a panic and said, I can't build on this property, stop your work. They stopped the work and did issue, my understanding is, a refund outside of the small fees that were already incurred by us beginning the lateral installation. But yeah, this, I did a little research. This was back on in 2022 even, yeah.
Yeah.
Coach Justin.
Kevin, you were part of utilities that talked about this?
I was absent at the meeting on Friday only because I was in Florida for a wedding, so.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Sorry. Didn't recall that, yep. The positives from the perspective of the board as it relates to receiving this property?
The easement for the sidewalk.
That's
I would
right.
say that would be it.
Getting, I think, the ability to put a sidewalk in, because my gut reaction is, the township shouldn't, it feels almost a little bit like charity. Like, because you can't build on your property, we'll just take it back from you. I mean, it's not free to maintain property. The property is removed from the tax roll. Now we've got a, LDR size lot to maintain. It's, the guy might be out his $25,000 for purchasing it, but it's still technically puts a burden on us to accept it.
Mm-hmm.
My gut reaction was, I don't want to play charity for property that just wasn't, they didn't do their homework on, frankly, before closing on it. But I think the saving grace here is the ability to put that sidewalk in, because if somebody else owned it and they held us hostage for sidewalks, we could potentially be paying good dollars to put a sidewalk across their property, just in terms of securing the easement. Kind of tips the scales for me a little bit, but I still don't love it.
I'm surprised there wouldn't be an adjacent property owner who would want to acquire it just for more elbow room.
Do you know if that's been asked? I mean, I know you can't build on it, but having a little bit extra land as the adjacent property owner, that was.
And there'd be nothing that would prevent us, if we did accept this, from, if we wish at some point, imposing the easement for the sidewalk, but then perhaps selling it. If it didn't go to the school, if they so ultimately they didn't want it, maybe they would.
But
maybe to an adjacent owner, yeah.
Yeah, but we just need to be crystal clear even with school potentially. If it is truly 100-year floodplain, you're not building a parking lot on it either for even the school's purposes. Nothing will be able to be built on it. I mean, you could apply for a permit from Eagle to fill in a regulated wetlands. There's nowhere to mitigate on site large enough. And so typically wetland credits for mitigation cost $100,000 an acre. I'm not sure that the township or school is going to pay a mitigation fee for that, let alone be granted a permit for it. So it really, if it truly is unusable, it's unusable. If the school had interest in it, it would be as essentially a gathering space. You know, you'd be able to put like a natural surface path or kind of a pad essentially, but nothing would be able to be constructed without a permit, and I don't think a permit would be granted.
So the carrying cost of the land would take how many years to offset the savings of the sidewalk easement?
So then that sort of begs the question, is the land up at the road outside of the floodplain, or would we even be able to build a sidewalk across it?
There's one on the other side right now.
Just because you did it in the past doesn't mean you can do it in the future.
I don't know if there is.
There is.
They, of course, had to build part of a bridge there for the people to walk. I don't see that happening on that other side.
Yeah.
I like green space. It's going to be green no matter what.
If we didn't accept it, and he didn't pay his taxes, then it would probably go up for auction.
Yep.
And Kelly's point, are we doing charity that we are accepting it? He's losing $25,000 that he's paid. I'm wondering, is it neater and cleaner to accept it and then we have the easement and control of it? But do we want control?
I'm personally of the opinion, and I think, again, we'd probably hear Gary's voice on this one if he were here. I'd be curious to know what he would say as well. I'm reluctant, not ultimately maybe, but temporarily. I'm not hearing maybe a compelling enough reason in terms of its value to us. I think of the land we acquired along Main Street where you get off the highway there. One side we just beautified it. The other side we got rid of what, it was like addition by subtraction, kind of some older houses that didn't look so good, and with the future hope of accessing the river through there and making that a useful area for, township residents. But we have to mow it, and we don't receive taxes on it and so on. I don't regret that one. I'm glad for that. I feel like it made an impact in terms of the sort of perspective as you come in town. You've got a break between, the highway and then the busyness of the township. Here, I don't know. It's not.
Well, Justin and Rob, can we get your thoughts on this?
I am indifferent. This came through utilities as a request to donate from the owner, and we put it in utilities. It's the same. I have the same thoughts you have. There is a loss of some tax revenue. It was purchased. We won't have a use for it. But the sidewalk easement is a real plus. And the school literally was a 2-minute conversation. I happened to be talking to one of their assistant superintendents. No real discussion, but Bursley is right across the street. They may say, hey, we take it. We can do water samples out of Rush Creek and do those sorts of activities, but no real position here.
What if we did it this one time? I mean, it could pass, and whatever. I mean, each person has their own perspective, but what if we tabled it and said something more definite would have to, see if it were fleshed out between the school and us, or in terms of the cost-benefit analysis? I don't know.
I would like to know more if the school would be interested, because they do have teachers that just strictly do the outside. I know behind Bowerwood School they got paths, and that teacher's just out there. It's all outside. If they can incorporate something like this with the crick being there and all the stuff that crabs and fish and whatever, and then along with that, get them to help in the maintenance of the whole thing, because they're using it, and then we still get the sidewalk benefit out of the whole thing too.
Well, I imagine if we took it and dealt with the sidewalk, I don't see a purpose for the township holding on to it, but I do see a purpose of taking title, getting the sidewalk easement. But I can have advanced talks with Jefferson School.
Yeah. See if we can complete that second leg of that.
Yeah.
Thought,
I think that's a good idea.
Just so that we don't put the cart before the horse and take title of something for the sidewalk easement and then get stuck with it if they don't want it. I'd rather understand their interest so that we don't have
And I didn't want to be presumptuous and say, hey, we have this property for you when you folks haven't decided. So now I can take this message to the folks at Jenison and see if they have real interest.
We should
I'm going to move.
Is there not access already to that creek from the east side of the road? Because why do you need to cross the road to get to the creek if you already got it there? I'm not sure why the school would want to put an outdoor class or have the access there on the west side when we already have the access on the east side. And then are you going to cross 12th Avenue in the middle of the day with 25 kids?
Yeah, that's all up for discussion.
Yeah.
It's got to be a fit.
Yeah. I don't believe parcel 013 would buy this thing cheap enough, just to take it off his hands. Well, I'm going to move to table this item, support. Okay. Discussion about the motion to table. All right. In essence, this would send it back to utilities, but ultimately with Rob doing some homework with the school and seeing what comes of that. So, all in favor of the motion to table, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, the motion to table is carried. The item is tabled. Now, I don't think we need to act on the original motion at that point, right?
Oh, okay, that was my question.
Yeah, I was gonna look in toward you, Kelly.
Yeah. Did we not need to remove that motion? The original? I think we needed to vote to remove that motion from the floor before we voted to table.
Okay, I'm not entirely sure. So, is there a motion then to remove the motion that had been on the table, take it off the table?
Yes.
Any support? All right, been supported. Kelly supported. All in favor of that, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, and then now a motion, having removed it from the floor, must we then further table? I think so. I'm going to say motion to table that item then.
Okay.
Support.
Yeah,
Supported. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And it is passed. Thank you. Item number 26, water station PLC upgrades. Bids for the electrical hardware portion came out of utilities. Their motion to accept the low bid from Apex Controls. So moved.
Support.
Supported. Okay. Gene, any thoughts on this one?
Utilities, I think they just got to upgrade everything and make sure that things are fitting together, because some of the stuff is older than it has been, and
It's approved a few months ago by the board.
Yep.
And TerraTech is representing us in obtaining these bids so we can put essentially the new technology in our stations that communicate with Wyoming and their water plant. And this is the next step, and to recommend the approval of the Apex Controls bid.
Yeah, a little bit, okay. All ready to vote on that? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, the low bid with Apex Controls is approved. Item 27, forklift truck purchase from utilities. There's a recommendation that we approve the purchase of this forklift truck from Hull Toyota. Is there a motion to make that purchase?
Motion to make that purchase.
Is there a second?
Support.
Okay, supported. Discussion. And here again, we don't always have to, but I look to utilities since you did a deeper dive. Gene?
The only thing I heard of on that, the reason, the old one will, what I gather, is going to stay at the cemetery building, if you want to call it that. And the one that they have there now does not lift high enough to the mezzanine of the DPW building that's going up in there. So they actually need something that's going to do the job.
And the difference in price between buying used and buying new was very, very close. And so they felt that we'd be better off with a brand new.
I think the lift size they need, I don't think you can hardly find anything used in that one.
Well, it looked like
I
the
believe
Hull,
24 feet, but yeah.
Yeah.
the Hull Toyota is a 6,500 pound capacity, whereas the Morrison, the Cat, was a 5,000 pound capacity. So I don't know how much they need to lift and move, but it's that. And also and I wasn't sure on the bid, is freight always extra or is that included? Because that can be a huge difference.
In that bid.
It is, okay.
Everything they need on that lift truck is included.
Okay. That was helpful to me, Gene. Thanks. Anyone else? All right. Hearing none. Is there, at this point, a readiness to vote on this for the low bid from Hull Toyota? Okay, I'll call for the vote now. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That is passed. Item 28, Windows 11 upgrade here. That upgrade is needed. It was recommended by Finance Committee. Is there a motion to approve the quote from Fusion IT, our IT provider, for these device upgrades?
I will make a motion to approve the quote from Fusion IT to make our needed upgrade.
Support?
Okay, it's been moved and supported. It's an offer good through this month, so we wanted to get it on the agenda for today and hopefully see it approved. Any questions or concerns about this? You probably have your own offices you're thinking you need to do it. Have you upgraded yet yours or?
Yeah, we have, but I still need to do it on my home computer, so
Oh, yeah.
I keep getting the notification.
Right. Right.
Oh, yeah, I do too
Good
on
at
my home
that.
computer. Yeah.
All right. Hearing nothing further. Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And that is carried. Item 29 now, a prospective new ordinance about smoking in public places, township properties, and township facilities. So this came out of finance. So a motion to approve the introduction and first reading of what would be a new ordinance.
I will approve that new ordinance.
Support. Yep. So this is when you have a new ordinance, this would be the first reading, the introduction of it. So would not finally approve it tonight, but would proceed forward then. Thoughts, concerns, questions? I know we talked about it in finance. We have issues from time to time in our parks, but not exclusively our parks. Sometimes even on these grounds and elsewhere, and it's not just for smoking of cigarettes, and it's not always just our residents, and yet there are no prohibitions right now on some of the activity that takes place, and I don't know, as by and large it's been outside of what I just mentioned, a tremendous issue. I think society just generally, as you've seen over the last 10, 15, 20 years, the opinions have shifted. You go to Europe and they've not moved. I mean, kids, adults, I mean, depending on where you are, other places in the world too. I mean, the Middle East where some relatives of mine live, it's like smoking's very common. It's become very out of the norm now and become very, prohibited in most public places, right? And nearly all, on airplanes and everywhere else. So we've not had such an ordinance, and it's not primarily aimed at, or exclusively, I should say, at cigarette smoking. It's other types of smoking. Legal, of course, things that are illegal or criminal are already subject to being an offense that someone could be arrested for or charged. But it made sense after I thought about it, at least to me. I wonder if it does to you.
I think that there's, moms bringing their kids into the library and people are smoking on the benches out front and they're having to walk through a slew of smoke. And that's not a good look for the kids and the parents coming into the library. So I think that was one of the concerns. So
that feels a bit more enforceable because you're right in front of a township office. I just wonder, how enforceable some of it is, at a park, right? It's right. Do I walk up to somebody and say, I'm not allowed to do that here, right? It's
right.
Like, what's the protocol then for enforcement?
Yes.
At least you can.
Yeah.
Want to. Maybe at least you got teeth.
Yeah, I do think it's important because it gives us a backbone to do any enforcement if needed, but maybe just for my understanding, hypothetically, what would be the protocol for enforcement and or what is the current schedule, let's say during Memorial Day through Labor Day, of police presence in parks? Do they, pop around and...
No schedule.
Okay.
Random check-ins.
Just random.
Yes.
And
But
if there was...
issue, we call them and they're there.
Yeah.
And I would say this is, in some ways I compare it to our leash laws. We have those, and it is not a hammer. It is if needed, if something is out of the norm. But we have quite a bit of smoking of marijuana, cannabis, at 8th Avenue Park, on the beach, under the structure. And if we want to take action, or if it seems to be over the top, or if people are complaining, this allows us to take action if necessary.
It's a pavilion at 8th Street is probably the biggest.
Yes.
Okay.
I think twofold, right? Previously, cigarettes were such an issue, not just for the smell, but for the litter it caused, right? Butts everywhere.
Yes.
Now when you switch to vapes, you're not dealing with the same litter issue, but it smells pretty pungent.
Anyone else? I believe we need it. I think it's another tool for law enforcement. If you're wondering about what someone is doing, it gives you a chance to address it, and I think it provides more security. I think we need it. But our society has radically changed. I mean, years ago it was incredibly common. And,
We all used to make ashtrays in school, didn't we? It was out of clay when we were kids, right?
When I went to CC, the carpets were littered with hundreds and even thousands of burn marks where students had put their cigarettes out on the carpet.
Think about cars. You always had the lighter and you had the little flip-open ashtray.
Yeah.
But vaping, I think, also is a big concern. And, now you can hide illegal drugs so easily. And people are using pretty strong stuff out in public, and I think an ordinance like this gives us a little more security, a little more safety.
Well, the high schools teach classes to the teachers on how to recognize vaping, if they're hiding it and what to look for, and they actually have to teach classes on that now. Crazy. Different world.
I get your point, John, so that if you saw someone smoking, you don't know what they're smoking. You
No,
might,
but now you can address it,
Yeah.
and you don't have someone that's strongly confronting you. It was going, when I left teaching, it was an extreme, incredible. And it affects student behavior. And I had a student that dropped a cell phone in front of me, and I quick picked it up as everyone's running around, and I called her back, and I said, "Here's your cell phone," and the security guard started laughing. And I went back to teach my class, and then he pulled me out, and he said, "You know that cell phone you gave? That was a vape." And he handed it back to her. And the kids were between classes just lined up. It gives law enforcement a tool.
Would we have to put signs up then? I mean, they would have signs up at all the public places.
I guess to Kelly's point, if you're looking to enforce it near buildings, near entrances, I certainly would agree to that. Being out in the middle of a park, somebody, you know, whether it be Rosewood, whether it be 8th Avenue, whatever, just, you know, enjoying their time there too. I guess to me it's very hard to just allow, they're not bugging anybody else, but then again, it comes down to is I guess, John, is what they are smoking or what it is smoking, or and it does as a kid who grew up with parents that smoked a lot. You know, it bugged me, and even outdoors today. I mean, when they outlawed or banned smoking within restaurants and bars, I couldn't have been happier. I could not stand going out to dinner and coming back smelling like a bar, and you know, so. But it just seems very hard that something you'd enforce in an outdoor stance in the middle of a park or an area. Somebody minding their own business, doing their own thing.
Yeah, true.
But I think we're kind of like the township is. We're a little bit complaint driven. So if they're out there, and I mean, even as a fire department, I see a lot of U-burns that shouldn't be there, but nobody's really complaining about it. You kind of turn your other, just kind of let it go, and same thing there. If they're out there walking their dog and nobody's complaining about it, I don't think anybody's gonna. But we have the teeth to handle things. I don't appreciate marijuana in our parks either. So.
Well said. Okay, this is a roll call vote. Again, this is the first reading of the ordinance.
Trustee Kelly?
No.
Trustee Schwann?
Yes.
Clerk Piper is yes. Supervisor Wieringa?
Yes.
Trustee Grassman?
Yes.
Treasurer DeWitt?
Yes.
That is 5 in favor, 1 against.
Okay,
Passed.
thank you. Good discussion. Item 30, second public comment period at this time. Anyone here? I know I saw Mr. McCarty's been waiting patiently, and others of you. Brad, boy, probably should have put you on at the beginning. I didn't notice you. I'm sorry. If you were looking to give us an update from Lansing, you waited a long time. You know, I will put you on the agenda if I know in advance you're coming. So anyway, anyone that would wish to address the board at this time, feel free.
Pete Plowman, Georgetown Precinct 13. I just want to say that great decision to table the donation of the property. I think one thing that maybe might have slipped through, I don't know who mentioned it on the board, but contact a bordering landowner. Maybe they want to purchase it. I thought that was a great idea, and hope that doesn't slip through, because that's another option you might want to look at too. Good job tabling it, because I'm not sure what we would do with that. The other thing I wanted to talk about is the forklift. For the new members on the board, I think most forklifts, if I remember from my days, go with like 13 feet to 15 feet. I'm not sure what the one we have is. It would be great if we had the make and model so you could tell how high it is. And I think that mezzanine in the new building is like 10 or 12 feet. So you might want to look at that to see if we could still use our existing forklift. Maybe save us quite a bit of money. The other thing I want to talk about is the utilities meeting that happened, that came in session, short notice, but notice just the same, is that would have been great if we would have had the presentation on the website that the consultant gave for the water and sewer rates that were discussed on that. So now I have to do a FOIA in order to get that information. That would have been great if the consultant's presentation was right in the minutes of that meeting, but it wasn't. So I'm hoping that through transparency and videotaping, a lot of these things can be averted and not done. This is a prime example where if you videotape these subcommittees or just use Kevin Austin to do the minutes of the meeting, because he does a great job on the zoning board taking down the detailed conversations, that would be awesome. So I just, as a resident, transparency means more accountability, Jim, and we need more transparency. So thank you.
Thank you.
So thank you for the board for allowing me to just to speak to you for a couple minutes, give you a little update from Lansing. First of all, congratulations to your next 4 years. You've committed yourselves and you got yourselves elected to the board. So congratulations. I find it a little interesting that the first time I met Kelly, I was sitting in a supervisor's chair for Georgetown Township, and she was doing presentations, and now here we're switched around. She's sitting behind the table, and I'm doing the presentation. Just an interesting thing. Don't know that you've been following the election, because the election's not finished. We still have one House seat in the Michigan House that is up for grabs. They are doing a recount right now in those communities down by the
Marshall, right? I think is it
Marshall? Down by Battle Creek.
Okay, all right.
Was a Democrat that was in office. There's a Republican who is ahead, 61 votes. That was was winning by 61 votes. They've now done a recount, and they're in the process of doing it. They're hoping to be finished by Wednesday afternoon. If that turns out to still be the case, that it's the Republican that wins that, we will have a 58-52 advantage in the House. That will bring, I truly believe that will bring some balance back to legislative process, because it means that both Republicans and Democrats will have to get together to make stuff work. I think that's a good thing. Current lame duck session is in process. Really interesting. We expected it to be a really wild kind of lame duck session because of what was being proposed by the Democrat folks. And interestingly, at this point in time, it's been really mild because the Democrats have not been able to bring 56 people, which is the majority. They have to have 56 to be able to vote. They haven't been able to bring that to Lansing. So as long as they don't bring that to Lansing, can't get 56 folks there to vote, they cannot pass any of the legislation that they've got. But I want you to know, there's roughly 8 to 10 bills on every page of this, and this is what I got this morning to be able to be voting on tomorrow. There's roughly 175 different bills that were introduced, most of which have never seen the light of day. They haven't had any information related to that that's come to us, and so we'll be dealing with that. It's an interesting time, and I'd be happy to take questions if anybody wants them. I know you don't normally do that at this time, but.
Are they trying to push through as much as they can yet before December the 1st?
They will be, yes.
Yep. If we ever miss you that you're here, please let us know. And there's no reason why we couldn't have you right at the beginning. I know Jim had mentioned that, and this was just an oversight.
But I didn't let you know in advance that I was going to be here. If I would have done that, then that would have been fine. But I was at Jenison Public Schools. They were done with their part early. I thought, I'll just come over here and hear what's going on and try and get in. So.
Thank you. If you use your best efforts and you don't notify us, you make a last minute decision. If I see you there, you get my attention.
Okay.
We'll stick you there.
Good. Happy to do that.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yes, Joseph Parnell Carter, 6408 Renwood, Georgetown Township. Volunteer leader of SaveTheCampbell.com effort. This past Friday, I submitted to your utility committee a revised draft resolution that seeks to address the environmental and legal concerns of board members who voted no on the original version. To be honest, I philosophically prefer the original draft because I believe carbon dioxide emissions are benign at current CO2 levels of around 0.04% of the Earth's atmosphere. But I realize a significant number of other people interpret the data differently, and we need a resolution that addresses their concerns. Keep in mind that the Campbell's other emissions are handled by over $1 billion in anti-polluting scrubbers invested in the plant in the past decade, and more could be added as appropriate. So we're dealing with the CO2 aspect. The sad reality is that Consumers Energy customers have not been well served by its policy and pricing. It is terribly sad that Zeeland Board of Public Works website can report that it provides residential electric rates that are nearly 58% below that of Consumers Energy, and industrial rates are approximately 20% below that of Consumers Energy. Decades ago, Zeeland stopped using Consumers Energy and municipalized electric within its own local cooperative as an example of how Michigan law gives local government significant power over electric. The Michigan law propelling the early closure of fossil fuel plants has provisions for delaying closure in cases of endangerment of the electric grid. Regional electric grid operator MISO has warned of electric grid reliability issues if Michigan and other states proceed with their planned closures, and it has called for delay of such closures. For this reason alone, Consumers Energy should request, and the Michigan Public Service Commission should grant, a delay in the closure. Such a delay is even further justified given the new federal government policy direction led by Trump's newly appointed energy czar, Doug Burgum. The federal government's planned pursuit of carbon sequestration by 2030 by Burgum fundamentally changes the legal picture of precipitously closing fossil fuel plants like the Campbell. Burgum's strategy is to keep the fossil fuel plants like Campbell going, but building carbon capture facilities to make up for it. We need to slow down closure and see how this carbon sequestration effort and the federal money that comes with it affects what is being done. There is already a court order for Consumers Energy related to the closure of the Campbell, resulting from ongoing litigation with Wolverine Power Cooperative. Wolverine has seen success in litigation with Consumers Energy over the way Consumers Energy pursued early closure. If Consumers Energy does not respond to town and county requests for delay, the county, in my opinion, should expeditiously join Wolverine and seek a court order to delay the Campbell's closure. Okay. Anyway, thank you so much for considering this newly submitted proposal. I would really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Joseph. And I can say that we did receive it by email, even those who were not in the utility. So, yeah, thank you for submitting it. Yep.
Barry Coley, 939 Rushmore. The 12th Street piece of property, I'm just around the corner from there and go by it a lot. I see no benefit to the township taking that. And they talked about the sidewalk easement. It'd be a sidewalk to nowhere because you're not going to build another bridge over the creek. It's not going to happen. And as far as the property owner next to it buying it, I don't see that as an option. To what? It's a 100-year floodplain. I just don't see going by it frequently. I don't see any benefit to the township, and I don't see the school wanting it. I just don't. So do your due diligence, maybe even go take a look at the property, but there's no benefit to the township. Thank you.
Maybe the neighbor's grandkids might want to just run around on it, you know?
Mike Bosch, Precinct 3, Georgetown Township. It's fun being back. It's like, who's on first? Who's on second? Is there a motion on the floor? It's like, you're new though, you'll get the hang of it. You got 4 years. I would like, and this is sincere, I would like to commend our new board members. And I've only been a few meetings, but I've seen Jean in utilities, Kelly in services, and I've worked with Kevin and the ZBA. But it's just refreshing to see the use of common sense and ask good questions. I spent many years watching board members take a look at the agenda for the first time 2 minutes before the meeting starts. So, Kelly, I commend you on digging in and researching, doing the due diligence. We need that as taxpayers. I would also ask, please review the 2022 constituent survey. I've sent it to some board members. They never read it. A lot of previous board members never read it. 2,700 respondents. So if you want to get a pulse of what the community wants, that's the place to find it. New board members, please don't be mindless rubber stampers. Don't be afraid to vote against what the majority is. And when they tell you something, do your homework. They will lie right to your face. So the key is just never forget who your boss is. Each and every taxpayer in Georgetown Township, your representatives, it's not what you want. It's not for your hobby or to be braggadocious about what you've done in this community and spent taxpayer money on or other personal gains. It's not granting wishes for friends and family. Now, the main reason I'm speaking tonight is I am demanding an apology from John Schwalm, for Ryan Kidd and myself, for his unprofessional, unwarranted, and unnecessary attacks and accusations against Ryan and myself as clerk and treasurer. I'd like to formally rescind my suggestion that John run for clerk or treasurer because John has shown that he's not good with numbers, dates, and deadlines, as John Schwalm has accumulated $575 in campaign finance violation penalties and fees from the county and state. This is not good. This could make the news. We don't need this kind of spotlight here in Georgetown. And it could make national news. It's very unprofessional. We need to keep this stuff in mind. I'd also recommend that he be removed from finance because it's kind of a black eye. It's just not good. It doesn't look good. Are we going to have liability? Are we going to be in the news? Those are my concerns, and I think the concerns of a lot of people in Georgetown. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Seeing none, we'll close the second public comment period. Item 31, discussion and general information among the board. I only have one thing to say. I mean, siphoning through much of what you just heard and throwing out, I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. No one here is lying to anyone's faces. However, I do also appreciate, and I said this last time, that I want you to be independent thinkers, and I appreciate your independence and your votes, your questions, and your research, and we should all be doing that. And so thank you both to the new members as well as those who've been on the board. Anyone else?
I would just like to say Merry Christmas, blessings to all of you, since this is our last meeting beforehand. Always remember to be kind. We're all children of God. Be helpful to others, and always bring your patience this time of year. Stuff like
Good reminders. All right. Anyone else?
Just a quick comment, and I'm not sure, maybe if Pam mentioned it to either one of you, but I was able to tour the senior center and talk to Pam a little bit more just about the items that were on the agenda. But when I walked in, I was so surprised to see hanging up all of the artwork from the various classes that are hosted. And many of those little pieces are for sale. They wouldn't necessarily benefit the township, but there's a lot of great art there, truly, some really cool pieces. And I thought it might be fun to let people, I don't know if anybody knows that that exists. It would be a fun little last-minute Christmas present for somebody to buy a hand-painted piece of art from somebody from our community. I don't know if there's a way to kind of showcase that those are hanging around the senior center, and even if we didn't advertise that they were for sale, there's some really beautiful art if we just wanted to make a little photo album of some of them. They're really good. So I thought that was cool.
I'll be there for the lunch on Wednesday, and I will look for something.
Yeah, I just wanted to share that.
My wife's birthday that day.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Take her to lunch.
All right.
Well,
Anyone
Jim,
else?
I have a few comments.
I'd like to mention that as people come up and speak, I think granted a little bit of grace and not ask them to give their address, but I think it's important to have the address. And not say you're from a precinct or whatever, but I'd like to see address. And also Granville has recommendations for when people address the board, and it has to be done in a professional type way rather than personal attacks. And I'd like to see us take a look at what Granville recommends to be done, because this type of thing started in 2010, 11, and 12, and it's pretty much, and I think we need to take a closer look at what we allow. They will lie right to your face. Sure don't like that. But let me explain this situation.
You don't want to explain something I could, but
no, I want to do this because when you run for office, if you spend over $1,000, you have to account for everything. Now, how do they know if you spent over $1,000? You tell them. And if you say you didn't spend $1,000, there's no investigation, nothing. But if you spend over that, the bookkeeping is pretty detailed. And I had about 15 or so that I had to keep track of, and it's very, very involved. But that goes along with it. And when I ran for office, Pam said, John, I don't want you going all the time. And you're not going to be going door to door and going to thousands of homes. I've done that in the past and lost 14 pounds. But you need to be home. And that means if you're going to run for office and the others are going to go to 6,000 to 8,000 homes, how in the world do you compete against them? You've got to spend some money. Now, I was completely self-funded. I didn't get any donations for anyone. And I spent about $8,500, sent out over 8,000 cards. Many of them were related to what facts about our utilities and so forth to get that out. Now, you didn't have to do that years ago because you had the Advance newspaper, and they did an incredible job. With the Advance gone, you don't have that. Pam and I have been traveling. I was 3 days late. My paperwork was perfect, and they will tell you that. And that's what they told me. There was no mistakes with my paperwork. But when you're 3 days late, there's a window of spending money after the deadline, which is open. Spend $500. After 3 days, the penalty is $500, whatever it is that you spent. Are there people in Ottawa County that paid an incredible amount, well over that, because they were 3 days late? 100%. Now, that sounds ridiculous, and I said to them, it sounds awfully punitive to me, but I paid them. And it was a fee. It was a late fee, but my paperwork was perfect. Very difficult to run for office and not spend some serious money. Just the cost of putting up signs and literature, incredibly difficult. Yet the people we ran against did it all for under $1,000. Will there be any investigation? No. Awful lot of signs out there. Kim ran, a wonderful person. I was impressed by her. She did fill out paperwork of going over 1,000. Not sure how that all happened. She must not have gotten some good advice. So, personal attacks. You know, when you do this, you're volunteering. You get paid very little money to do what we're doing up here. And does this kind of go along with it? Yes. But I think we've got to take a look at these personal attacks that are going to continue. I'd like you to take a look at Granville. And I don't want you folks to be intimidated, because I've had that happen with people I've worked with before, and they have been intimidated and afraid. And when Becky Steele was on, she said, John, will you walk me to your car? to her car. So in 2016, I started walking her to her car. Why? But that continued. Sean Half here went out to his car. It did not go well with people out there. We should be safe when we're here, and we should be safe when we leave. And not have people come to our house during campaign and challenge you and tell you that you're going to be facing all kinds of fines from the state of Michigan, which scared my wife, and she took photographs. So, I'm happy to be here. This is a pleasure for me. We have to decide how far we're going to let this go. But I hope you'll all stand strong. And yes, there is free speech, but there's not when you take and villainize someone. So thank you, and I appreciate it. I'm excited to work with all of you. And this just kind of comes to the territory. Back in 2010, I think we got a thing in the mail, death threat and stuff like that. You'll have some crazy stuff happen. But happy you're here. Thank you.
All right. Anyone else? Is there a motion to adjourn?
Mark.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.